Thursday, October 26, 2017. My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative here from Las Cruces and Mesilla in New Mexico with your legislative update for today. Some good news and bad news on education. The good news is the state has finally decided to adopt the full next generation science standards for science education in New Mexico public schools. And this is a big deal for me. I first carried a bill to implement these things in 2013 as a group of universities and educators around the country came together to do this new kind of education. It focuses on hands-on science education and new, better techniques to teach students. Now, if you've been in New Mexico and been seeing this controversy, the governor and her Secretary of Education wanted to take out references to evolution, climate change, the age of the earth, and make a bunch of other changes. And there were many of us that fought that really strongly, and it turns out that today the Secretary of Education is going to put the full next generation science standards in and make a few changes which I don't think are too bad from what I've seen, and that's really good news. So doing this job can sometimes be really rough, and you work your tail off, and sometimes you don't seem like you do anything, but after working on this for 4 years, seeing it come into play and seeing science teachers really be listened to, scientists and business community members really be listened to, finally is great. Now, that being said, I just learned about 5 minutes ago from another state representative, a friend of mine, Andres Romero, who's a history teacher in Albuquerque, that the state is making changes to the end-of-year assessments for history. And why this is important is because usually when teachers have to teach this test, that's what they teach during the regular year. And so when things like trusts and trust busting, this is like monopolies from the 1800s, references to credit as a cause of the Great Depression, the fact that we dropped an atomic bomb on 2 atomic bombs on Japan, the whole nuclear arms race is out. References to Rosa Parks and Malcolm X are out, and references to Roe versus Wade are out. Now, if you go through that list again, you can see that a lot of these might be politically charged. And once again, these changes are made without any kind of input from anybody that anybody knows anything about. Apparently there were a list of teachers that had given input. Almost all of them are from rural New Mexico, and we should have teacher input from rural New Mexico, but if teachers from Las Cruces, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, places like that aren't included, it seems like this might be a very politically driven issue, especially when you look at race issues like Rosa Parks and Malcolm X, which should be part of our educational curriculum, as well as Roe v. Wade, which is a massive decision regarding women's health here in the United States. Obviously a political issue, but that doesn't mean you take it out. The last thing I want to say is that I was in Santa Fe a couple of days ago, and I happened to have the evening off, so I went down to the Cocteau Theater, which is George R.R. Martin's place. He was showing some pretty low-budget film that was from one of his novellas in the 1980s, and he and the producer were there talking about it. So I stayed and watched it. I can nerd out a little bit. But afterwards, they were talking about the film, and there was an African-American lady there who was asking a question about this guy, James Avery. So if any of you have ever seen The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he was the dad on that show, and he's a black guy. And she was asking about lighting, because in the first part of the movie, he was really dark, and apparently this is an issue from a while ago in the 70s and 80s where people didn't really understand how to light people of color, so they didn't really show up very well. And the producer said, yeah, we weren't very good at it back then. We've been improving ever since. But then George R.R. Martin said something really interesting. He said, with this novella that I wrote, the lead character was a black woman. And when they wrote the movie in, she got cast as a white, blonde, blue-eyed woman. And he said, I really regret this. This was a mistake. I didn't fight for this harder. And in this upcoming TV series that they're going to do based on that, he says there will be a black woman in there. And it was just this it was a really needed moment. I think many of us that are white guys especially, we don't understand what it's like to say how I look is not valued, who I am as a person is not valued, and when someone is cast that doesn't look like that original character, that's what that means. And I think it was always good on George R.R. Martin, really good on him for bringing this up when he didn't have to, and letting people understand that these kind of decisions happen every day in our society. And if we don't confront these issues head on and really talk about them and figure out how we do better, they're not going to go away. So just a really interesting occurrence that happened in somewhere where you wouldn't expect it. So thanks a lot for watching this. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any of the issues, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye.